Hello, today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to tell you about a new book which is a sequel to Meet Me by the Steelmen. Now, the statues used to be inside Meadow Hall. However, if you wanted to go to Meadow Hall to see the statues now, you'd have to look outside because the statues have been moved. They're actually in the taxi rank area now. They're still there, out in the fresh air, but you would have to go outside to see them. And I thought it would be nice to try to write another story about the statues now that they're in a different place, and to bring my story right up to date. And I thought, well, maybe Stevie and Jenny would have grown up by now, and maybe they would have some children of their own. And so that's how this new book started to be written. And I'm going to just give you a little bit of an idea of how the story starts. The first chapter is called They Aren't There Anymore. It was the beginning of the Easter holidays, and the train rushed along towards Meadow Hall. The sky had turned grey above the huge sheds and warehouses that we were passing. Raindrops began to splash against the window. "Don't want to stay in Sheffield?" Layla cried. I understood how my little sister felt, because I didn't really want to stay in Sheffield either. "But you like it when you get there," Mum said. "It's an exciting place to be, is Sheffield. It's got cinemas and shops and football grounds and lots of lovely parks with playgrounds in them." "I like my park at home," Layla said. "But Grandma's so pleased that you're going to stay with her," Mum said. "She's been a bit lonely since Grandpa died, you know, and Uncle Steve and Auntie Jasmine and Freya are going to meet us at Meadow Hall and take you back to Grandma's house. And you both love Freya, don't you, Sean? Don't you?" Mum squeezed my arm so that I knew she wanted me to help her out a bit. "Yes, Freya's fun," I agreed. We were on our way to stay with our grandma, who lived in Sheffield, while work was done on our house in Manchester. I remembered that I'd built a sandcastle with my cousin Freya when the family visited Whitby last summer. We'd climbed onto the huge pile of sand that we'd dug and shouted wildly as the tide swirled in around us. When the sandcastle collapsed, Freya had laughed like mad, not caring at all that she got soaked. I smiled at the memory, but that summer day seemed a long time ago, and now I felt a little shy about seeing my cousin again. "Nearly there," said Mum. "Look, here comes the green glass dome." "The next stop is Meadow Hall," a voice said over a loudspeaker. "Don't want," Layla started again. "You have to," I told her, "and I'll be staying with Grandma too, so you'll be okay." Mum got up to grab hold of the small suitcase and our bags. "Come on, they'll be looking out for us," she said. We had to get off the train quickly before the whistle blew and the train went on to Sheffield's Central Station. It was raining quite heavily and a cold wind blew along the platform. "Stevie!" Mum called. "Jasmine, we're here!" "Hey!" Uncle Steve saw us and began waving madly. Mum rushed up the platform to hug her brother. We followed slowly, and I saw Freya there, shuffling along behind Auntie Jasmine. As soon as Mum let him go, Uncle Steve turned to Layla and me. "Hey, great to see you too," he cried. "Freya can't wait to see you." But our cousin hung back, looking cold and gloomy as the rain came down more heavily still. "Give us a hug," Uncle Steve whispered, bending down to Layla. No, said Layla, and she hid behind Mum. Uncle Steve stood up and held out his hand to me in a friendly manner. Hi, Sean, shake pal, he offered. I grinned and shook his hand. Then Auntie Jasmine came forward to hug both me and Mum, and she blew a kiss to Layla. Welcome to Sheffield, she said. Uncle Steve took our suitcase from Mum. Right, let's get you all warm and fed, he said. So we hurried as fast as we could with our bags and backpacks over the open bridge that led from the railway station into the shopping centre. The automatic door slid open to let us in, and things immediately seemed better. It was warm and dry in there, and soft music seemed to be playing everywhere. Uncle Steve dropped a coin into a machine that stood by the entrance and produced a small lollipop, which he handed to Layla. She took the lollipop and managed to give him a shaky smile. Lunch first, Mum told her, giving them both a look. Steve, you shouldn't, Auntie Jasmine said, smiling at him but shaking her head. Course I should, he said, grinning hugely. Right, lunch, follow me. He marched ahead of us, leading the way down escalators and along the busy indoor shopping mall, past rows of people sitting in comfy chairs looking at their phones. At last we came to the big central food hall, where different stalls sold lots of delicious things to eat. But just as we came in sight of the tables and chairs, Mum stopped and touched Uncle Steve's arm. You take them in and find a table, she said. I must go to see the men. Just for a moment, I won't be long. No. Wait, Jenny, said Uncle Steve. The men aren't there. They're not near the shops anymore. Mum looked shocked. What, she said, the men aren't there? It's okay, Jenny, Auntie Jasmine assured her. They've just moved outside. Uncle Steve shook his head and smiled. Mum looked even more shocked. Did you say they've moved? Moved again? You'll see them later, said Uncle Steve. The statues are outside now, near the taxi rank, and we've parked our van close to them. So if you come outside to see us off, you'll see them. I listened to what they said, thinking, utterly confused. For a moment, Mum had looked really worried when they talked about the men. Now she was nodding and smiling again and looking relieved. What men? I asked. The grown-ups just shook their heads and laughed softly, as though they'd been caught out being silly. Freya came up close to me and whispered in my ear. I know what men, she said quietly. I turned to look at her, still feeling mystified. It's the steel men, she said. 3 statues made of bronze, statues of steel men who used to work here long ago. They made stealing a shopping centre? I asked doubtfully. No, she giggled. Before the shopping centre was built, there was a huge great steelworks here called Hadfields. They had to pull the steelworks down before they built the shopping centre, but my dad is mad about those statues, and every time we come to Meadow Hall, we have to go and look at them. Why? I asked. Don't know. He won't say, she said. But I think there is something strange about those statues. Wait till you see them. You mean there's some sort of mystery? I asked. She nodded and smiled in a secretive way. And I grinned back at her, and suddenly I found that I didn't really mind the thought of staying in Sheffield, not one little bit. So that's how the story starts, and it's called Forged in Steel. I'll take that off so that you can see the proper title there, Forged in Steel. And it is about the statues at Meadowhall, so you can go to see those again if you would like to, but it's also about some new statues in Sheffield that I think are very beautiful and very important. Maybe you've seen them right there in the middle of Sheffield, and I like them so much I thought maybe they could be magical statues too. Thank you for watching, listening. Hope you will enjoy both the books sometime. Goodbye.